final presentation for today is by Klea Harris. Klea is an attorney and founder of Angel Advocates Legal Services. I love the name of her law firm. Just to kind of throw in here and add why we went this direction as part of planning this conference. One of the statistics that really stands out when you're talking about elder abuse prevention is that the majority of elder abuse, unfortunately, is perpetrated by family members or close loved ones in the circle of older adults. And so we wanted Klea to join us to kind of talk about things that you can do to set things up as best you can to prevent abuse moving forward. So just to give you a little background on Klea, Klea believes in using estate planning to foster family harmony and prevent conflicts. Drawing from her experiences as a wife and mother of 8, including 3 adopted children, she's a busy woman, believe me. She leads a team of estate planning attorneys. She consults with others to integrate purposeful elements into their practices. So thank you for being here, Klea. I think you had a child graduate today. Is that right? So she was running to get to this and fit this in, but we're so grateful that you joined us. So I will turn my video off and mute and turn the time over to you. Yep, it looks good.
That's good. Okay, perfect. Well, so happy to be here. Yes, today was one of those days filled with happy tears. So thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for so much for having me come here and be with all of you today. I hope that you will take a moment and really presence yourself, that we're going to be talking about some really important things that are truly going to have an impact on how maybe you see your family, how maybe you see your life, and how things are organized right now. Welcome if you're a professional. I know that I absolutely love attending conferences like this and getting ideas and perspective on how I can best serve my clients as well. I know that I've picked so many of your brains, and so I always come away with a story or something that I can share. And so I hope that that will be the same thing for you, that you'll have that experience. I just want to just ask a question. Who here wants to have an estate planning experience that changes you and your family and ultimately the entire world? And I'm sure you probably thought that wasn't even possible. So it probably sounds a little too good to be true. But I truly believe that I use the estate planning process to transform family relationships within my client families. So many of the things we experience today are really secrets in plain sight. So I hope that hearing my stories and experiencing these tools for yourself, that you'll have a personal experience with them. Just kind of like what Kathy was just sharing. I'm sure a lot of what she said really resonated with you, and you probably, a lot of it you perhaps felt like, how come I didn't know this before? It's so, so clearly there are people, there are resources out there that want to help, that have been designed to help you and to help support this time for you and your loved ones. So we're going to really bridge the gap towards actually implementing some of these things today. I'm not just going to leave you and send you home with a bunch of homework. we're going to kind of explore these topics together, these legal topics. So the work that my firm does has set me apart from traditional transactional attorneys. So in addition to my practice, I also mentor about 500 other estate planning attorneys nationwide in what's called personal family lawyer, and so that they can give their own clients a purposeful planning experience. So I love the theme of this conference because it strikes at the heart of why I have developed the systems and processes in my practice. Over the past 6 years especially, I can point to a specific personal experience from not just the sorrow and suffering of those who have gone before you, but also the joy and peace of those who have braved the discomfort of proactively addressing their legal planning before it was too late. So I'm going to be sharing some client experiences, family client experiences that have really inspired what we will discuss today, especially doing that proactive legal planning before you lose capacity to thoughtfully choose and implement your wishes. or change your wishes when a plan you thought was going to work no longer does. So really, just as important it is to do the planning once, it's really important to review it over and over and over again to make sure, okay, how do I feel about this now? And give yourself permission to make an adjustment. So today, you're not just going to sit back and be entertained by my stories, although there will be a lot of them. I hope the end, you will have a clear idea of who you should, and maybe more importantly, who you should not have in your inner circle as you age. You may even have more questions than answers. So no worries, I will tell you how you can get all your questions answered before we end today, so you don't have to leave feeling frustrated. Because I know this is a unique forum where I can't look into your eyes and check for understanding. This is really odd. Normally I'm presenting to large groups of people, and there's a little bit more of an energy exchange going on. So this experience will be exactly what you make it. So shut your door, turn off your phone, any background applications, download the workbook and a pen to write with, because you truly deserve this time. So, and with that, I hope you will allow me to set some context for how I came to estate planning. And that is, let me submit. Okay, here we go. There we are. Okay, so this is my little crew way back in 2003 when we first adopted our 2 kids from Haiti. We had a 4 and a 2-year-old when we adopted a 6 and a 4-year-old, and life was nuts. It was absolute mayhem. And then we had a baby a year later. And so, I mean, they're super cute kids, but this muddy picture is representative of my life. It was chaos. We had a lot of kids under the age of 6. We had 5 under the age of 6. And one had an undiagnosed special need for about 5 years. We didn't have any support. So my husband and I were just like, we need an estate plan, because if we can barely handle this, like there's only, who knows what somebody else might do if something were to happen to the 2 of us. So at the ripe age of like 27, I had an estate plan. I had a trust at the age of 27. And we shopped around, paid a lot of money, and we found an attorney. He interviewed us for 45 minutes, took down some notes, jotted, and then we signed like 3 months later, after I reminded him that we still existed and he had forgotten about us. And we assigned at his receptionist desk in his law office reception area. And I took that estate plan to my wills and estates and trust class. This was me on my first day of law school. So there's the kids, there's the little one we had a year later. And there I took it to my wills and estates and trusts, had him review it. And he pointed out several things he was concerned about, and one of which that it wasn't signed properly, which is what I was concerned about after we'd had a class about it. So truly, this has really informed how important I feel it is to make sure you are getting a second eye on your estate planning, or what would happen if something were to happen to you, just so that you can know what would happen. I clearly was unaware of the consequences at the time, and 19 years, now this is like more like 19 years later, this attorney, I haven't heard from him since, even though of course our relationship, our family relationships, our dynamics, our values have changed, our finances have changed, the law has changed, our physical health has changed. Clearly this plan no longer is functioning the way it should at this time. So, but this is normal, everyone. This attorney wasn't doing anything wrong in particular. I just felt that there must be a better way. So then as I worked more and more with clients and their families and was pulled into several multi-year elder exploitation and abuse cases, I witnessed the difference between those families that found themselves fighting against and amongst each other in court, and those who seemed to move through their parents' transition with relative ease and peace. And just to give you some context, I graduated in gerontology from Brigham Young University with a major in history and minor in gerontology. And I worked as a homemaker in high school, in college, Meals on Wheels driver volunteer Meals on Wheels driver for 10 years. So I've always been drawn to this kind of population. This wasn't just something I pulled out of thin air. But definitely observing the stark contrast led me to capture the connection building conversations you can have. So I truly believe that most people want to do the right thing. I really believe this. I've seen it at first. but integrity suffers in the dark. And when otherwise honest individuals take their first step down that slippery slope, these connecting conversations reorient your relationship and empower it with love and wisdom. We will touch on a few of these conversations while we're here today, but I truly, truly believe that these are conversations that can bring out the best in those that you would like to have help you or who are helping you. So my approach to serving families is rooted in my belief that families and family relationships are sacred. Therefore, I hope that this journey we take together will help you view these experiences not just as tricks of the trade to avoid being exploited or abused, but actual sacred experiences you can introduce into your family. Looking at this list here, how many of you recognize one or two of these issues in your own family? So looking at that, there's quite a list. Guess what? You're normal. That's just fine. This is completely normal. We live in a fallen world surrounded by imperfect people. And guess what? It's supposed to be hard. It's just kind of a hard thing. We live in a place where we could go driving down the freeway and one of our lovely Utah drivers could cut you off and all of a sudden you're on the side of the road. Anything could happen. As a professional who works with families regularly, I want to assure you that these are issues that face statistically at least 80% of families. In fact, I just read an article yesterday of over 30%, 27% to 30% of families have cut off between the child and the parent, usually initiated by the child. So you can address the dysfunction without addressing the dysfunction by connecting conversations that help turn your children's hearts to you and their fathers and their mothers. So who are these fathers and mothers? We've got 71 million baby boomers, about 10,000 retire every single day. 30% will leave some type of inheritance to their children. And the average, the majority of which will be about $10,000, less than $10,000. 65 trillion in baby boomer assets may be passed on, really depending on what happens towards the end and their health care. Regardless, 59% say that values and life lessons are the most important part of one's legacy. And 71% of American adults say an estate plan would make me feel like a good spouse or parent. Yet 73% do not have an estate plan. So the fathers and the mothers, they are more than just numbers and percentages. With only 30% of individuals leaving an inheritance, what is the purpose for estate planning? It is to ensure that you have your own group of 5 angel advocates that you thoughtfully choose who surround you. We don't do defaults here, and we don't allow ourselves to feel any kind of obligation on who should serve as your advocate. So today, as a professional legal professional, please excuse the sports analogy, but I am like the coach, and you are, let's put you in the client role, are the quarterback calling the plays for each of your 5 advocates. Together, we have a unique responsibility to increase connection among your team and prevent you from getting sacked. Okay, we're doing the football analogy. We don't want you to get sacked. I have watched a lot of film, hypothetically. I know what can happen. I have seen these plays, and I don't want you to get sacked. I want you to get across the field and win. I want you to score the touchdown. I say, I want you to get to the other side. Your coach is the third-party advocate on the sidelines. You are the one playing your game. So let's introduce you to your other 4 advocates, your other 4 angel advocates that we're looking for. So we've got your asset advocate, health advocate, your legacy advocate, your potential exploitation advocate, and then of course your legal advocate. That probably sounds like a lot of advocates. Most people are happy if they have one advocate, and you may be in a situation where you choose the same individual for each role. But regardless, you must have someone designated, and they must be lovingly educated about your wishes so they can advocate for you in each of those 5 areas. So even if it is an hour conversation, you must take this seriously. You must be formal about this, please, because the spirit in which you approach this will be the spirit that they receive it with. If it's a default, fall in your lap, well, then that you're setting them up and you up for failure, for getting sacked. I have divided them up because in my years of working with families, I have found that, like any good attorney, I can argue that they are each the most important person in your planning. So to help you prevent being sacked, in other words, exploited or abused, I have also found that they each seem to have a particular personality and represent a unique perspective and set of talents and gifts. So we will spend the remainder of our time together introducing the role of each of these 5 advocates, how to choose one, and some important considerations, examples of do's and don'ts from my personal experience, and one connecting conversation you might consider having with them. So I wish I could see all your faces, and I wish I could see a nod or an amen or something, but I'm going to assume you're with me, and let's get started. So let's hop in. So Rabbi Mordecai Liebling said that your last will and testament is your final teaching. What do you want it to say? So your asset advocate will be the one who speaks for you and directs your assets when you can't speak anymore. They ensure your assets are there to provide for your financial needs when you can't manage things anymore, and they will be the one who works with your beneficiaries when you pass away. So advocate, or adversary, that's the question here. So you don't want someone who will convince you to sell your home and give them the equity in exchange for a promise to take care of you for the rest of their life, Then they spend it all. They spend all of your equity on fixing up their house and leave you in the basement without a phone and unable to climb stairs. So the family, extended family, has to kidnap you. And now you end up in court because you gave away your money voluntarily and have nothing left to pay for care. Yes, that's a true story. Don't let that happen to you. That person's an adversary. Don't let somebody talk you into doing something like that, please. So here's another example. You don't want someone who will not be available enough to review your accountings to make sure you haven't been scammed or you haven't started to give away large sums of money. That's usually one of the first earlier signs of dementia, is when you start giving away money. So you want to have somebody who isn't far away or isn't present or isn't able to kind of just keep an eye on things as you give them permission to. You don't want someone who pressures you to add their name to your account and then pressures you to add their spouse's name to your accounts, because you can't get them off once they are on there. Don't add people as joints on your account. Use a power of attorney, use a trust. Don't add people to your accounts for other reasons as well, but that's a major one. So you want to choose someone who is loyal, someone who empowers you when you speak to them, is respectful, and can read between the lines of what you mean. No gaslighting, okay? The term gaslighting, learn it. I hope you can recognize it. It's when somebody makes you feel crazy when you're not. So often, especially when there's different ranges of dementia, those with dementia can actually lose more capacity because of the way they're treated by their caregiver. Okay, so if the caregiver is empowering, then they often are able to function in at least a more extended role. Whereas if they're being continually told that they're crazy, continually told that they're forgetful, yelled at, I've seen just the implosion of capacity. It's just awful to watch. So be careful if you ever feel that somebody is not treating you with respect and support. It's something to communicate to a safe person. Integrity, someone who is transparent with other family members yet discreet. Analytical and problem solving, they need to have the stamina to actually read your documents. We want somebody who will read the trust, somebody who will read and actually implement and has a fiduciary responsibility, which they do, but actually takes it seriously. Money management, can handle their own finances and is financially secure. If they are not financially secure, if you don't agree with how they manage their money, do not give them power to manage yours. I don't care if they're your oldest child. I don't care if they live next door or in the next city and everyone else lives far away. You don't do it. Don't do it, please. Keep records and report to others. Has the time and willingness to devote to this responsibility. The key word is choose. If you don't choose, they will be chosen for you by a court. You want to be the one to choose. You know things often that others don't. So now I have, in the interest of time, I have given you a big list of do's and don'ts in your workbook that you should be able to download. So please download that. I want you to read that. But of course, do complete an inventory of all your assets so that the individual knows what you have in case something happens suddenly. And do have proper legal documents in place, such as a power of attorney, a will, and a trust, so they can be empowered to step in without court involvement. Okay, so those are the two I'm just going to highlight there. Connecting conversations. These are the words of advice, love, and counsel that will lift and guide your loved ones. Your asset advocate is not just somebody who has a set of, of instructions empowered to access your bank accounts or to sell your property. This person is speaking for you when it comes to your assets. So just the act of capturing these thoughts turns the hearts of the fathers and the mothers. Don't wait to discuss your wisdom and values when it's too late. All of my trusts, for example, begin with a statement similar to this phrase: this trust is a gift of love and it exists to enhance the lives of the beneficiaries. So what do you want to say? I ask my clients to list 4 things they want their beneficiaries to know when they receive their inheritance. So take a minute while we're doing this, take a minute right now and jot down the first 2 things that come to mind. One dear client that I absolutely love wrote, every good thing I have enjoyed in this life has come to me because of my love for my wife. It is because of her and her frugality we have these resources to bless our children. I hope you will remember her when you have opportunities that you would not have otherwise because of these resources. I mean, can you imagine imparting a gift of an inheritance to a loved one, a family member, with that injunction that I am giving you, this is for you, but remember the sacrifice that it represents. And without your mother and her frugality, you would not receive this. So be thinking, who might be a good fit? Who would be a good fit to be an asset advocate from what we've talked about just now? And what can you accompany your instructions for them with the guidance and guidelines, the guidance that you want them to impart to your beneficiaries or to those that you love after you're gone. So let's take a look at your health advocate. Your health advocate, number 2, will be the one who speaks for you and directs your healthcare wishes when you can't speak anymore. They ensure continuity between your healthcare providers and will be the one to determine with your physician when it is time to remove life support. So it's a huge, huge decision, a huge role in your the quality of your life. So advocate or adversary. Okay, you don't want someone who will yell at you and tell others that you are faking it when you are experiencing pain and are now unable to walk laps around your community like you used to. Okay, we don't want that. You don't want someone who will not take you to the doctor and says that you can just use ibuprofen and Tylenol to manage your pain. Or you don't want someone who won't consult with you once you begin to repeat yourself like about every 5 minutes. So you still know who people are, you still know if you're in pain or not, but about every 5 minutes you ask the same questions. And instead, they make decisions without you concerning your care. So these are just some examples. You definitely don't want someone who will not stand up to other family members when it's time to say goodbye. You want somebody who will be your advocate, your health advocate. So you want to choose someone who is loyal, someone who empowers you when you speak with them, is respectful and can read between the lines of what you mean. Okay, we're seeing a theme here. Integrity, someone who is transparent with other family members yet discreet. Okay, we don't want them hiding information from family members. Okay, that are interested and concerned about you. Curious and compassionate, and has some interest in medical issues are always helpful. Discreet with your privacy, but willing to keep family members informed. Has the time and willingness, of course, to devote to this responsibility. And I have to say, it is preferable that they are close by so that they can attend doctor's appointments eventually and be really on the front lines there. The key word, once again, is choose. If you don't choose, they will be chosen for you by statute. So it's the spouse. Then it's, unless you're divorced or legally separated, then it's the following family members in this order: a child, a parent, a sibling, a grandchild, or a grandparent. So if you don't choose, there is a default of who will be able to make decisions for you. So especially if you're not so sure that your loving spouse, who you are so grateful you married, is the right one to make healthcare decisions for you, because they may not be able to make that hard decision, you need to proactively choose someone. Okay. I did once again include in that workbook the do's and don'ts. So check that out. And in the interest of time, we'll pop over to the connecting conversation that I suggest. But of course, just an aside, do complete an inventory of doctors, medications, all of those kinds of things. Make sure you've got your proper legal documents in place, such as Advanced Healthcare Directive, Living Will, Provider's Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. That's different than a living will, okay? Living Care Plan and HIPAA. Now, just as I just want to pop in here, connecting conversation is express your feelings and intent around your decisions using Living Care Plan. A team of 5 BYU students spent this past semester creating an Angel Advocates Academy on the Learn Worlds platform for my law firm. They were in a social impact class that they work with community members. And so they created, they took my decision-making or my Living Care Plan, and they turned it into a platform where I recorded videos explaining it. So this is something that is available to all of you. I've labeled it available without charge. So you can see there's honestly about an hour and a half of videos of me explaining each one of these different kinds of elements, and there's more. But you don't have to watch all the videos, but I must say they're full of stories and reasons why you should have a decision, make some of these things known as you're going, preparing for a loved one to be able to advocate for you. Now, this is my cute family. That's right. This is my daughter who graduated today. But I wanted to show you this because, of course, I've done the estate planning for my parents. And these are my husband's mother and stepfather. And these are the rest of my kids. And I interviewed my mom and dad. We were on a trip. I interviewed them, did the Living Care Plan, and I also have a healthcare decision-making toolkit that I do have with my clients. Interviewed them, one on the way to our destination, the other one on the way back. Took us about 45 minutes, an hour. We had a wonderful conversation. And it was like one of those bonding memories that I'll always have, because we were talking about things that matter. They really matter. And talking about things that really matter bond your heart together. Even though, yes, it's sad and uncomfortable that these things might be needed in the future, but how much better for them to know what you want and for you to feel like somebody that you know and love is going to be advocating for you. So also, please don't discount connecting with your grandchildren. This is a really important conversation that you could have and should have with grandchildren, because they will likely be supporting their parents in making these decisions as you age as well. And honestly, I have to tell you that grandchildren are often closer to the grandparents than the children are to their parents. It's a very interesting phenomenon, but I have heard it explained that grandchildren and grandparents get along so well because they have a common enemy, which is the parents. And so please don't discount that generational experience and have those conversations, because they will be the ones to most likely support their own parents in helping you. Also, okay, number 3, advocate. We've got your legacy advocate will be the one who captures your interview and the family history that is living in you and that will be lost if and when you are gone. So the pictures that only you know who is in them. Okay, we've all had those family reunion pictures, with like 50 to 100 people and nobody knows who anyone is. Let's get that recorded, get that taken care of. The heirlooms and family stories and the values that will be lost if it's not captured, the tragedies that might impact multiple generations. This is becoming more and more and more important as we learn the importance of transgenerational trauma and epigenetics and intergenerational impact of experiences. And when I started learning about this and incorporating it into my work with my clients, and just bringing out some of these issues or some of these circumstances, the stories that came out, that presenced why people felt or acted or were the way that they were truly rooted in experiences that had happened with their parents and grandparents. So it's not just important to capture the warm, fuzzy, they graduated from college stories, But the really difficult stories, one in particular I'm thinking of where I had a sense that there had been something that had happened. I didn't know what, just because my client was very, was like a stoic chief, just very stoic. And I said this, and when we were doing his legacy interview, which is a part of my client's experience with me, he immediately told me about how his grandfather had been murdered. And the compassion and the context that I felt for him and for his family just really made so much more sense. So these are important things that will help your families, your descendants understand what's going on. Maybe give you some compassion for maybe some of the hard things that you've endured. So they capture all of this and ensure that your wishes are followed when personal property is distributed. So you don't, advocate or adversary, you don't want someone who will ship off all your heirlooms and donate them to the thrift store. Okay, you don't want someone who will allow your granddaughter to wear your wedding ring and walk off with it during the funeral. Okay, true story. You don't want someone who gets overwhelmed easily, so they take several months before they're willing to distribute things. That's really a problem too. So definitely you want to choose someone who is, say it all together, loyal, someone who empowers you when you speak to them, integrity, someone who will be fair, curious and compassionate, has some interest in family history. And I'm sure many people have a sense of who of their grandchildren, who of their children tend to be the ones to want to talk about the family story and to know the stories behind these things. Discreet with your privacy, of course, and has the time and willingness. Do's and don'ts, you've got that list there, but please capture the story and value or legacy that an item represents. Do an inventory of your meaningful heirlooms. So at least the wedding rings, it's the smallest, usually high value and most personal sentimental item that most people have is that wedding ring. And that's the one that everyone's crying about and mad that they didn't get. So please, at least say where your wedding ring goes. I'm going to encourage you, as far as your connecting conversation, send an email and ask if there's any particular item that has a special meaning that a family member, close friends, would like when you no longer need it because of downsizing or other that. We don't have to make this morbid. It doesn't have to be, when I'm dead, do you want something that I have? If it's an item you no longer need, or you're considering downsizing, you want to make sure that a family member, may get that. And don't think that just because you might not have something of value, that it's not valuable to your loved ones. I always tell the story of the ceramic froggy scrubber that I looked at for 18 years of my life when I had to do the dishes, because we never had a dishwasher my entire growing up. Okay, that's why I'm such a high performing person, because I spent so many hours doing dishes. So I had this ceramic froggy scrubber from the 80s, right? I put the scrubber in their mouth. I would give anything to have that ceramic froggy scrubber. It's not, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not even in my parents' home. I'm so sad, because that would have been a really meaningful, sentimental thing that I would have loved to have as be a part of my family. I did get the cowbell though. And that's the one that was rung when my mom had to call me home for dinner. So I'm happy about the cowbell. So, and my parents are both still alive, so it's not like, they're gone. So please do a connecting conversation and bonus points if you capture the story behind it. So like George Washington, when he did his will, he wrote in his will to each of my nephews, William, blah, 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 Bushrod and George, because he didn't have any children. He only had nephews. I give one of the swords or cuttos of which I may die possessed, and they are to choose in the order they are named. These swords are accompanied with an injunction not to unsheath them for the purpose of shedding blood, except it be for self-defense, or in defense of their country and its rights, and in the latter case, to keep them unsheathed and prefer falling with them in their hands to the relinquishment thereof. Oh, can you imagine what receiving one of George Washington's sword with this injunction, what that would mean, how that infuses that sword with purpose and meaning and values. The same thing, you have an opportunity to take an item that can be so small, but can represent something of value, a value of loyalty, a value of patriotism, whatever. Tell the story behind it. So extra points if you tell the story behind that item. All right, and be thinking about who would be good at being your legacy advocate. All right, your potential exploitation advocate will be the one who will put the ripcord, will pull the ripcord if you are falling out of the capacity plane, and your attorney needs someone to work with that you trust. So it essentially waives the attorney-client privilege for, in my situation, strictly for purposes of me being able to talk to someone if I'm worried about you. So this is, so you need to choose someone who you will listen to if you are about to do something dumb, but you still have capacity, because it's kind of like a tenuous role there. You can have complete capacity, know who you are, know what your assets are, all of those kinds of things that determine capacity when it comes to estate planning. But you could be deciding to give it all to your new 40-year-old girlfriend, and you're in your 80s because she's the only one that's ever loved you, and your kids don't come around anymore, and like, and I'm seeing like exploitation all over the place. So please do choose someone who is not a beneficiary or related to you, preferably, because I want it to be somebody that doesn't have an interest in your situation financially, but that you trust. An old friend, somebody that you have a good relationship of respect with. Connecting conversation, discuss what you would want them to do if you remarried your much younger girlfriend and decided to change your estate planning and disinherit your kids. Yeah, that's what I want you to have, that conversation. So who might be a good fit for this role? So now this is what I see and feel by working with families in this way. So what I do isn't therapy, but the results can be therapeutic. Abuse and exploitation take place when there is a distance between the giver and the receiver. The more often you take time to deepen connection with those you love, the more loyal they will be to you, the more they will advocate for you, the more you will be able to inoculate yourself from some of the most heartbreaking experiences. So that is why the final advocate is your legal advocate. They are not just your advocate, they are your coach, the third-party perspective that can identify issues and problems, whether it be with changes in the law, assets fluctuating, relationships with your team. Once again, arguably the most important member of your team. So choose someone who does not just draft documents, choose an attorney who sees estate planning as an opportunity to deepen the connection you have with your family. And what if you do not have family members close by? Or what if you don't have children and you never married? So many of my clients don't have children and have never married. I've had 6 just since the beginning of the year who are unable to even name a family member in these advocate roles. I've created relationships with trusted professionals that you can choose from, who you can name to support you in these roles, so you don't have to go to court, because often the alternative is having a court-appointed advocate or a court-appointed guardian or conservator. So please take this and be proactive about this. Choose someone who has a system where they check in with their clients on a yearly or every 3-year basis to follow up and make sure that your documents, family relationships, asset levels, and the law all still work together. I put in place the processes to support them in doing these things. They know they want and they know they should do, but rarely take the time to do it. So I'm the bad guy. I'm the one that says, need you to do this. And then they can point to me when they're talking to their family members and saying, my lawyer says I need to do this. Or better yet, you don't even have to bring me up as a lawyer, not as a lawyer. You can say, I saw this elder conference and I heard this lawyer speak, and she says we need to have these conversations. Use me as your excuse. I have the opportunity of having a personal and professional life that changes the world one family at a time. And I invite you to consider experimenting with just one of these ideas, either in your own family or with a client's family if you're a professional, who also chooses to practice in this way. I hope and look forward to hearing from you as well. I always love to connect with other professionals who see the family the way I love to serve families. So with that, I think we are to the end of my slides, and I'm ready for questions if we have time for that. If y'all aren't exhausted and your brains aren't blown from all of this wonderful information you've been listening to today.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of great information today, Klea. So just real quickly, without going too deep, what are some of the challenges that you've seen that happen when people haven't had these conversations or haven't done the planning to make sure that their family understands what their wishes are?
That would be, well, I could share a whole bunch more. That's actually the part that I kind of trimmed down and skipped. Well, I can tell you, as far as asset advocates, you don't want someone who will encourage you to put their name on the deed to your house as a way to avoid proper estate planning and then use everything you buy with suspicion because now they feel you are spending their money. So they take you to court and get a judge to appoint a guardian and conservator over you. And eventually 5 attorneys are involved in a multi-year dispute over your capacity. I mean, I have so many, these are all true stories. I mean, this isn't me making up stuff. This is my personal experiences on why I created these conversations. Another one, you don't want someone who will view your assets as theirs and try to impoverish you so they can sell your house and put you in an assisted living facility on Medicaid. I've seen that happen. You don't want someone, adding names to account. That's when you don't have those conversations. That's just with assets. With healthcare, we can go over a few of those too. You don't want someone who will encourage you to put their, oh, sorry, that's the same one. Here we go. Ship off your heirlooms. Oh, that's my legacy one. Here we go. Here's my healthcare one. Who will remove you from hospice care after another family member gets you approved so that you can have more support. I've seen people remove, a gentleman removed his mother from hospice care after the granddaughter put her on because the son wasn't listening to the mother and making sure she got the health care that she needed. What about, you don't want someone who will just put you on morphine without telling you and you are not able to have any more intervention. I've seen that where they just put her on morphine because she was beginning to repeat herself. And so they cut her out of the decisions of her end of life care. And she was put on morphine and lost capacity. Fortunately, I was a part of that situation and I went in and spoke with her before the morphine took hold, before she had lost the ability to communicate. But that was really hard. What other types of
It
things
sounds like when you think about the different levels of advocates you had, that having those multiple advocates can kind of be a protection because, once they know your wishes, then you have multiple people looking in and making sure that things are being monitored. I have a question here in the chat. My kids live in many different states. What advice do you have for them to work together?
Oh boy, if one wonderful thing came from Zoom or from COVID was us being much more comfortable with Zoom. So please, if you can start instituting even a monthly family conversation on Zoom with all of the kids for half an hour on a Sunday afternoon, really would recommend that. And also, honestly, one of the big reasons why I created or started describing the roles of legal estate planning in terms of different advocates was because I had clients that had lots of kids. And so not just clients that don't have kids at all, but also clients that have lots of kids and they didn't want to leave anyone out. And they wanted, oh, so-and-so is going to feel so sad if they're not the trustee or if they're not the this or the that, when really it's not a situation that is really a good fit for their personality, for their talents, or for their life experience. It's really important if you want to avoid and protect yourself. then to really be mindful and thoughtful about why you're choosing someone, and then communicate that to your kids during one of these family, get-togethers. A lot of times we call them family meetings. That might sound overly formal, but you may want to have it, hey, let's have a touch base so that we can talk about the things that are going on, hear about everyone else, and then also if you can bring up these natural conversations.
And then everybody's on the same page because they've heard the same things too.
Yes.
I don't want to forget
Especially with healthcare. I tell all my clients, you've got to not just tell your healthcare advocate, you have to tell everyone that will be influenced by that healthcare advocate will be influenced by, because they will neutralize anything you've told them, because guess what? They're the ones that have to look them in the eye. And I've seen situations where people would have wanted to be let go, but that the surrounding family members would not let the advocate make that hard decision.
So I don't want to forget to ask this question. You had mentioned a recording with the BYU students in your presentation. Do you have a link for that?
Yes, it's in the workbook.
It's in the workbook.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we had a number of people asking about that.
Yeah, look in the workbook. It's angel-advocates.learnworlds.com. But it's in your workbook. So if you have that, and I believe you all do, if not, we can drop that in the chat, I think, or let me see if Stephanie can drop that in the chat.
Yeah.
I think I memorized it well enough. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
angel-advocates.learnworlds.com.
So somebody asked, why do you discourage having a child as a signee on a bank account?
Oh, great question. Okay, so I alluded to one of the reasons. Once they're on there, now this is when they're joint on the account. So being a signee, it might be different. You need to talk to your bank, but once they're on there, you can't get them off. Okay, so you don't want to have a joint on the account, because then they become a joint owner. That means that when you pass away, that entire asset will go to them. They don't have to report that or give that to any of their co-inheritors. And also, anything they're walking around as a liability, if they run over somebody in a sidewalk, all of a sudden they have an insurance claim against them, and your bank account is one of their assets. Okay, so much easier. Just let them help you with a power of attorney. So put a power of attorney on file, or change that bank account to a trust account. So get a trust, bank account's a trust account, and then that trust governs their ability to help you. And then if something happens to them, heaven forbid, before you, there's a natural progression of who will help you then. Like it'll be your successor trustee. It will be that. Whereas if you have a joint on there, that's not a long-term solution. That's and it leaves you open to vulnerability. So
one of the things that we sometimes see with clients is abuse of power of attorney. And so they will go maybe to a loved one who has very diminished capacity and have them sign a new power of attorney in order to use that power of attorney, usually to do something unscrupulous. What is a protection to help prevent that from happening?
Okay. Oh, these are great questions. Okay. So that's actually one of the major reasons why I created the Angel Advocates Academy, is that I intend on having modules for each one of these kinds of documents. So I actually have a level of membership where I am an advocate for the power advocate for the client towards the power of attorney and healthcare agent, to educate them, because I just felt it was weird that I, as a notary, have to have that renewed every 5 years, and I have to go through this whole rigmarole of 5 hours of education and take a test and just to even have a stamp. And it reminds me every time I stamp it that I'm going to lose that power on this date. But then a power of attorney can slip a document under your nose while you're eating breakfast. You sign it, and all of a sudden they're selling your house. Like, it's really bad. And so super important. The protections for that are putting your assets into a trust. And all of my colleagues at the estate planning section for the Utah Bar really, truly get your assets into a trust. If your assets are in a trust, it's a much more formal way of having power over those assets. There's a whole document that governs how, when, and where, and what they can do with those assets. And if something happens to that person, it changes in a very smooth order. And then also, you can make changes to that person or to that power of attorney. And the assets are put into the trust, and those are all governed by the trust. So it's not something that somebody can just slip a document under your nose and then go off and sell your house. Once that house is in the trust, it's not governed by the power of attorney anymore. So that's really important to understand. That powers of attorney they only have power over non-trust assets and activities, okay? So and typically people are, except in this crazy day and age where people download $10 trusts off the internet and then they sign things, crazy things. But typically you're talking with an attorney, you're talking through scenarios, you're being much more ceremonial and deliberate about creating a trust and funding it. So it's not something that's going to quickly take place when you don't have capacity, or that somebody can, somebody absolutely could not, well, should, heaven forbid, somebody creating a trust and then having you sign that, and then also having you put all your assets into the trust and having you sign that without you realizing. So those are some protections that that really help when it comes to powers of attorney.
Great. And this, you may have answered this question as part of answering that one. So just tell me if you have. What do we say to our parents if they say we have a will, we don't need a trust?
Well, of course, the situation is different for everyone. And then you would need to take a look at their assets. You need to take a look.
Oh, Klea, it looks like we might have lost you. Stephanie, can you still hear me?
Oh, she's back.
You're back.
Hello?
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I had a glitch.
So honestly, a will might be enough. You really don't know unless you take a look at their family relationships, their level of assets, their health, the laws, all of those things determine what is the best case situation. If you have any kind of incapacity that you're preparing for, like I mentioned, having a trust is a much more flexible document and a much more protective document for incapacity. Something that maybe a lot of people don't know, and maybe your parents don't know this, that if they do own real property, that means a house or land, they will automatically be going to court. Okay, so they'll be going to probate when you pass away. So you could share with them, maybe after speaking with an attorney or becoming a little bit more educated, you may say, hey, mom and dad, I'm really not looking forward to going to probate after you pass away. I would really like to, put some things in place so things can be as smooth as possible after you're gone. And so that we can address maybe some family issues and also just put a plug in here. A lot of times when people have a will, they often do it alone, and they often project their angst on their children in their will by disinheriting. So please, if that's the situation, please have them talk to an attorney, preferably an attorney who believes in family relationships and that estate planning should perpetuate healthy family relationships rather than drop a bomb in everyone's lap when mom and dad pass away and all of a sudden the relationships are gone sideways because someone was disinherited. And that's a try. We could talk about that too.
That comment just led into this question. What advice would you have in leaving a legacy to disaffected children?
Ooh, that very last part I didn't get. Now your connection's getting a little.
What advice would you have in leaving a legacy to disaffected children? We're having connection problems with you, Klea. Just give her a second longer. Okay. Well, we might have lost Klea. Oh, there you are. There you are again.
Okay. Disaffected children. That word tells me that they maybe have separated themselves from the family rather than disinherited, not necessarily you wanting to disinherit them. That's some of the miracles that I've seen in my practice has actually come from a child reaching out to that disaffected family member. This has happened just last year where they wrote an email saying, and I have an email template that I use, my clients use to kind of pull phrasing from, but just said, you know, hey, is there anything from mom and dad that you would be interested in having be a part of your family, even though they hadn't heard from this daughter in 10 years. And she even missed their 70th wedding anniversary. And there was a whole list of different items that were also sent to all of the other kids. And for the first time in 10 years, she emailed back. And she emailed back with some wonderful reply, a wonderful story, and said no, she didn't need anything, that she had some items, and she's since, you know, reignited contact with the family. I think that when it comes to that types of those types of situations, the spirit in which the gift is given is the spirit in which it's received. And it's so important to record a letter, to record an interview or an interview or a recording of some sort, expressing your love. And also you may even be introspective about maybe some of the experiences that you had in your childhood or in your past or in your relationships with other family members that may have informed the way they're reacting to you and to your family. That might be something that has been perpetuated. Another thing that I see that's really beautiful is if you have an item in your home that represents or is a memory of them in a happier time in your family, and then writing that story and have that be attached to that item. All of those types of things can help strengthen that bond, or to at least give an opportunity.
Great suggestions. Well, we've come to the end of our conference, Klea, and thank you so much for your participation.